Chapter 1264. Because of this accident, the crowd was in an uproar. Some people were so agitated that they even pulled out the swords at their waists. The scene was a mess. Xiao Chun and Jingyu, who were sitting in their high seats, stood up as well. Xiao Chun, did you see it clearly? Jingyu stood next to Jingyu. She turned to Xiao Chun with a grave expression as she watched the scene unfold. Xiao Chun's expression turned ugly as well. He pursed his lips and said, "There must be something going on behind the scenes. The Holy Family and Poison Sex people have left." Amidst the chaos, Jingyu unexpectedly saw the Holy Family and Poison Sex people. As if they'd received some sort of signal, they turned and left. "Come, let's go take a look at that person." The scene was incomparably chaotic. The dead person was simply surrounded and didn't even seem to attract much attention. Jingyu and Xiao Chun both approached the corpse. "Qingge, take a look." Xiao Chun turned to Qingge. Qingge nodded and followed the crowd in. He glanced at the dead person and frowned. He turned and shook his head at Xiao Chun. "Let's go." Xiao Chun's expression changed. He waved at Jingyu and left without a word. Because of a single person's death, a chaotic battle broke out in the alliance. The people of the four countries fought one another. Fortunately, the battle didn't continue. However, the relationship between the four countries had cracked because of this reason. When Jingyu and Xiao Chun's group returned to their residence, Jingyu didn't even have time to ask a single question. She packed up her things and followed Xiao Chun's group out of the city without hesitation. They ran in the direction of Cebu's imperial palace. Seeing Xiao Chun's attitude, Jingyu knew that something big must have happened. Otherwise, Xiao Chun wouldn't be in such a hurry. When the sky was completely dark, Xiao Chun and Jingyu's group arrived at a forest far away from the city. Xiao Chun and Jingyu's group finally had some time to rest. Jingyu sighed in relief. "What's going on?" Jingyu panted and took a sip of water before asking. "The Holy Family and Poison Sex people have discovered us. We can't stay in Genia City any longer." Xiao Chun's expression turned ugly as he said, "We have to leave quickly. That person didn't die from poison." "What?" Jingyu's expression changed in an instant. Her face turned cold as she turned to look at Qingge. "He wasn't poisoned." Qingge slowly shook his head and said, "That person looked like he was poisoned, but there were no signs of poison in his body. I didn't feel his pulse, but I can confirm it." "If he wasn't poisoned, then?" Jingyu furrowed her brows in confusion. Her eyes were filled with confusion. More accurately, that person might have entered a half-dead state. Qingge furrowed his brows in confusion as he said, "I don't know how to explain it, but the only thing I can understand is that someone intentionally caused this chaos." "What do you mean?" Jingyu frowned when she heard Qingge's words. She said, "Someone wants to lure us out?" "Yes." Xiao Chun nodded slowly and said, "I can't guarantee that the Nether sect hasn't been exposed, but I can guarantee that we've been completely exposed. We can't rest here tonight. We have to travel through the night." Chapter 1265. "All right." Jingyu nodded slowly. Suddenly, she recalled the various occurrences during the battle and felt that something was very wrong. So the Holy Family and the Poison Sect's sudden arrival was because of this? Xiao Chun, Jingyu, and the others rested for a moment before mounting their horses to continue forward. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chun made his judgment so quickly, but something unexpected still happened. Just as Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others stepped onto the main road, countless torches suddenly lit up the originally dark area. Without a word, the black figure pounced at Xiao Chun and Jingyu. "Ha ha!" A hearty laugh rang out. "Ninth Imperial Concubine, you really made this young master look for you." Yunjing appeared in front of Jingyu and Xiao Chun, dressed in white and holding a folding fan in his hand. When Jingyu heard Yunjing's voice, her expression instantly turned ugly. "I was wondering who it was. So it's second young Master Yun." Jingyu's lips hooked up coldly as her cold words came out of Jingyu's mouth. "Even if I'm blind, I won't forget your voice, second young Master Yun." Jingyu's words were very flirtatious, but there seemed to be a thick layer of mockery in them. Yunjing didn't feel the slightest bit of flirtatiousness when he heard them. but instead felt like he'd been viciously slapped. His expression instantly turned incomparably ugly. Every time he met Jingyu in the past, Jingyu's mocking gaze and tone when she looked at his crotch, Yunjing felt as disgusted as if he'd swallowed a fly. Being defeated by this woman once had become an eternal humiliation. As long as Jingyu didn't die, it would never end. Ninth Imperial Concubine, you're still as sharp-tongued as ever. Yunjing's eyes were filled with an ominous glint as he looked at Jingyu with icy eyes. His hands slowly clenched into fists. Your poison sect is already here, so the Holy Family won't let you off either, right? Since you're already here, why don't you just keep hiding? Jingyu's face hidden behind the veil was incomparably calm as she spoke casually. I've long heard that the woman with strange eyes is more courageous than the rest. Today, I've seen you live up to your reputation. After Jing's words, another group of figures slowly stepped out from behind Jingyu and Xiao Chun. In an instant, they surrounded Jingyu and Xiao Chen's group. Jingyu turned her head indifferently when she heard the voice. Her eyes were calm as she watched the people from the Holy Family approach. As expected, it was the middle-aged man she'd seen at the martial arts competition. The Holy Family really has quite a few people. Won't you introduce us? Jingyu asked calmly. This old man is the fourth elder of the Holy Family, Gu Li. The middle-aged man stood with his hands clasped behind his back as he scrutinized Jingyu's veiled face. His eyes were covered as he frowned in confusion. Your Holy Family really has an endless number of elders to kill. You got rid of the sixth elder, but now you have so many more. Jingyu turned her head disdainfully and said, You can't wait to catch me? I'd really like to ask, is that old thing, Yin Chen, still alive? Jingyu's eyes were filled with ice as she slowly said, Let him live. Wait for this lady to personally take his life. Chapter 1266. Such a strong murderous aura. You really are a vicious person. Today, this old man will punish you on behalf of the heavens. When Gu Li heard Jingyu's words, he knew that she was talking about the sixth elder. Back then, the sixth elder of the Holy Family had come out to search for the girl with different pupils. When he returned, his tendons and veins were all destroyed. When he was carried back to the Holy Family, it was a tragic sight. Now that he heard Jingyu's words, Gu Li felt his face burn. That incident was like a ruthless slap to the Holy Family's face and brought shame to the Holy Family. So pompous. Jingyu snorted disdainfully as she grabbed Xiao Chen's hand tightly. Capture her, Gu Li ordered. The Holy Family took the lead and made the first move. The poison sect naturally didn't stay idle and immediately gave the order to swarm forward. Jingyu followed beside Xiao Chun and seemed to be dodging the attacks with ease. However, Gu Li had been observing Jingyu from the beginning. When he saw Jingyu grabbing Xiao Chun without letting go, a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. It was obvious that Jingyu was unable to distinguish the direction because her forces were damaged. That was why she needed to grab onto Xiao Chun and not let go. Seeing this scene, Gu Li's eyes suddenly revealed a fierce look. He rushed towards Xiao Chun and Jingyu. He originally thought that it would be easy to capture Jingyu, but he didn't expect that Xiao Chun and Jingyu would be so powerful. No matter which direction Gu Li attacked from, Jingyu was able to easily block his attacks. Although she was a little hasty at times, she was able to block his attacks. Damn it! Gu Li cursed under his breath as his expression turned ugly. He never expected that the blind Jingyu's martial arts would be so good. Fourth Elder, do you think that I can't fight just because I'm blind? Jingyu seemed to sense Gu Li's meaning and laughed mockingly. I'm good at everything except for my eyes. Do you think you can capture me so easily? Gu Li's expression changed and he snorted coldly. His eyes revealed a dignified look. If a blind person with different pupils was already like this, Gu Li couldn't imagine what would happen if Jingyu didn't have her sight. If she was allowed to rise, the Holy Family's future would be limitless. After all, the fights between hidden clans were much fiercer than those in the secular world. If they didn't prosper, they would perish. Gu Li's expression was extremely ugly. Xiao Chun and Jing Yu were beginning to feel powerless as the battle raged on. But at that moment, unknown people appeared from all directions to protect Jing Yu, Xiao Chun, and the others. Who are you people? How dare you interfere in the matters between the Holy Family and the Poison Sect? The situation had originally been in favor of the Poison Sect and the Holy Family, but these people had suddenly appeared and turned the situation around. What Poison Sect and the Holy Family? You're all just lackeys of Nan Li and the Tokyo. You poison our people and want to leave just like that? Don't you think we're nothing? A coquettish voice rang out. Jing Yu couldn't be more familiar with this voice. It was clearly a man's voice, but it purposely carried a woman's coquettish tone. Who else could it be but phone watching? You're really an embarrassment to the Tokyo. Another cold voice rang out. When Jing Yu turned her head in the direction of the voice, she saw Feng Ling's adorable baby face. Chapter 1267. Since when did I, Nan Li, have to bear the infamy of people like you? You deserve to die. The last voice was mixed with a cold female voice. Without thinking, he knew that the person who came was Su Yu. The three forces instantly gathered together and started fighting without even giving the Holy Family and Poison Sect a chance to speak. Gu Li and Yun Jing probably didn't expect things to develop to this point, and their expressions turned ugly. They wanted to explain, but the other side didn't give them a chance to speak at all. This made them feel extremely sullen. If they were trying to capture the girl with the different pupils and exposed her pupils, they could definitely stop them. But if they did that, wouldn't they be creating another competitor? So Yun Jing and Gu Li couldn't be said to be fighting for the girl's pupils. If they weren't fighting for the girl's pupils, were they really trying to poison her to death? Wouldn't they be offending everyone in the pugilistic world? Like this, the two of them couldn't say a word. They could only stiffen their necks and take the beating. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun had already run away without a care for anything else. It was obvious that the three forces had come to rescue them. Jing Yu had expected Feng Watching to come, but she didn't expect Su Yu and Feng Ling to come as well. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's group had already run out of sight. The people on the other side were fighting, and then they found a random excuse to slip away. They hadn't explained themselves, and the girl with the different pupils hadn't been caught. Needless to say, it was a very sullen night. Gu Li and Yun Jing looked at the mess on the ground, their faces livid with anger. They flung their sleeves fiercely. Fourth Elder, if I'm not mistaken, these three forces are the strongest forces in the pugilistic world. Yun Jing was quite knowledgeable. He thought for a moment and came up with a rough idea. His face was grave as he spoke. Which three countries? Gu Li's expression changed slightly, and he turned to ask Yun Jing. Tokyo's Darkeen Sect, Nan Li's Constellation Palace, and Northern Pastoral's Sunluo Tower. Yun Jing frowned slightly and continued. Fourth Elder, do you still remember the news that the Ninth Emperor's, Xiao Chun, seems to be very close to Sunluo Tower's lord? Phone watching? Could it be they're here to save people? Gu Li's expression turned cold. He looked in the direction Jing Yu and Xiao Chun had left, and his expression changed. That's possible. Yun Jing frowned slightly. But why did the other two sects people come as well? Is it really because of that dead person? Yun Jing was puzzled. This situation needs to be investigated properly. Perhaps we can find another way out. Gu Li frowned and said with a cold face, how did the woman with different pupils and her group get here? It said that they disappeared after coming out of Jinling, right? We must find out what's going on. Gu Li turned to Yun Jing and said, isn't the Poison Sect very familiar with the modern world? This shouldn't be a problem for you, right? Ha! Fourth Elder, you must be joking. Yun Jing smiled coldly and said slowly, your Holy Family is famous among the reclusive clans. I'm sure it'll be easy for you to find the girl with the different pupils. Chapter 1268. You flatter me. You flatter me? Gu Li looked at Yun Jing's expression and curled his lips mockingly. If it wasn't for the third miss of your Poison Sect, I don't think we would have fallen to such a state, right? Fourth Elder, are you trying to settle accounts with me right now? Yun Jing's expression turned frosty as he looked at Gu Li with icy eyes. Huh? What are you talking about? Let's go see where the girl with different pupils has fled to first. A smile slowly appeared on Gu Li's face. It seemed that he did not intend to say anything more. He smiled calmly at Yun Jing and then turned to chase after Jingyu and Xiao Chun. Jingyu and Xiao Chun had already run far away and disappeared from the main road into the forest. After running for a long time, Jingyu and Xiao Chun's group finally stopped to rest. With Feng watching and the others blocking them, the Holy Family and Poison Sect won't be able to catch up for a while. Xiao Chun slowly sheathed his sword and turned to look at the dark forest. He then turned to look at Jingyu and said, "Don't worry." Jingyu panted slightly and said, "I didn't think that Feng Ling and Suyu would come to rescue us. It's a bit unexpected." Xiao Chun's expression changed slightly. He frowned slightly and said, "Then we don't owe each other anything. But this Suyu." Xiao Chun slowly turned to look at Xing Yi. Xing Yi received Xiao Chun's gaze and lowered his head with a frown. Jingyu clearly understood Xiao Chun's meaning and lowered her head without saying anything. Xing Yi stood in place with his head lowered and didn't seem to change because of Xiao Chun's words. However, his hands had quietly clenched in a fist at some point. Qingge was completely exhausted and sprawled on a rock. "I regret it so much," Qingge said with a long face. "If I had known that there would be so many assassinations in the future, I wouldn't have been so lazy when Master told me to practice martial arts." "Serves you right." Jingyu calmly rolled her eyes and glared at Qingge. "Get up. We can't rest here. We have to keep going." We still have to run?" Qingge frowned when he heard Jingyu's words. He didn't have any room to resist and was dragged by Jingyu to continue running. They walked for 2 days straight. Finally, they saw the city. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others didn't rest at all along the way. At this moment, they were extremely exhausted. When they entered the city, they still didn't encounter any obstacles. After arriving at the city, everyone couldn't wait to find a place to stay. They bought some clothes and changed into them. Then, they slept peacefully in the inn. They had finally avoided the most difficult time. However, this didn't mean that the danger was over. As long as they didn't reach Cebu's imperial city, they couldn't rest for a day. Just like this time, Jingyu was careless and willfully slept for an extra 2 hours, which led to her being completely awakened by an assassination. Then, she led everyone into the deep mountains and forests to escape. The sad thing was that Jingyu clearly had the mystic pupil, but she couldn't use it at all. She could only pretend to be blind and run with Xiao Chun and the others. Chapter 1269. After running through countless small cities and forests, they finally arrived at the legendary Cebu Imperial City. The endless pursuit finally allowed Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others to catch their breaths. This trip was really too difficult. "Oh my god! We can finally rest for a while." In a mountain forest outside the Shiwu Imperial City, Jingyu's black clothes were almost covered in mud. She sat on the ground and exhaled deeply as she spoke. "Someone must be messing with me." After this trip, Jingyu began to doubt her own abilities. Logically speaking, her concealment skills were not weak at all. But why was it that no matter where Jingyu hid or where she hid, she was still found instantly? At first, Jingyu thought that it was just a coincidence. But after counting so many times, Jingyu could not help but suspect that her whereabouts must have been exposed. Who is it? How could they be so crazy? Jingyu sat on a rock angrily. Xiao Chun and the others' eyes were bloodshot. After running for their lives without any rest, they were completely exhausted. Who else but the Constellation Palace could be so capable? Xiao Chen's face stiffened for a moment. He glanced at Xing Yi indifferently. "Fuck." Jing Yu's face darkened. She turned to Xing Yi and asked seriously, "Xing Yi, did you offend the lady?" When Xing Yi heard Jing Yu's question, his body stiffened slightly. He lowered his head and did not speak. Jing Yu looked at Xing Yi's silent expression. It was obvious that he had admitted to it. Instantly, Jing Yu felt her legs cramping. "Big brother, of all the people you could offend, why did you have to offend a woman?" "Why? Jingyu was on the verge of tears. No wonder no matter what Jingyu and Xiao Chun did along the way, no matter how well they hid, they were instantly found. It could be said that Xiao Chun and Jingyu had killed their way into the Cebu Imperial Palace. The Cebu Imperial Palace was just beneath their feet. They would reach it after climbing over this mountain. For some reason, Jingyu felt touched that they were finally safe, even though the Cebu Imperial Palace was clearly someone else's territory. Tears were streaming down her face. Cebu's Imperial Palace and Tokyo's Imperial Palace didn't seem to be much different. There were only some differences in the architecture and clothing. When Jingyu and Xiao Chun reached the city gates, they were finally safe. Jingyu and Xiao Chun felt emotional as they stood in front of the city gates. Their clothes were tattered and their faces were covered in mud. Xiao Chun was wearing a mask and Jingyu was still wearing her veil. At this moment, Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others were walking towards the city gate, but they were stopped when they approached the city gate. Hey, you guys stop right there? The guard at the city gates saw Jingyu and Xiao Chun's group from afar. He looked at their tattered clothes and then at Jingyu and Xiao Chun, who were looking left and right. One look, and he could tell that they were people who had never seen the world. Furthermore, they were covered in mud. How could the guard hold himself back? Which one of the people who could enter the Imperial Palace wasn't rich? Chapter 1270. Even if they weren't from a wealthy family, at least they were dressed appropriately. They weren't like Jingyu and Xiao Chun, who were dressed like beggars. How could they not be stopped? Are you calling for us? Jingyu was just about to walk in when she suddenly heard a shout. She immediately stopped and looked sideways at the guards who were walking over. She blinked her eyes in confusion and raised her finger to point at her nose as she asked, "Where did this beggar come from? This isn't a place for you to beg for food. Get lost." The guard raised his hand in disgust and pushed Jingyu and Xiao Chun to the side. His shoving action caused Jingyu to stumble and almost fall. Jingyu was dumbfounded by the guard's series of actions. "What did you say?" Jingyu widened her eyes and looked at the guard in front of her. She frowned with a conflicted expression. Did she hear wrongly just now? Beggar. The corner of Jingyu's mouth twitched fiercely. She said righteously, "Do I look like a beggar to you?" "I." Jingyu was just about to point at her clothes to let the others take a good look. However, when he lowered his head to look at his tattered and muddy clothes, the words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped in his throat. "You're still a fool? Get lost. Get lost. Do you see? This is the Imperial City. This is the place where the Emperor lives, not a place where a beggar like you can come. Get lost." The guard pointed at the city gate and said, "If you don't leave, don't blame me for being rude." The guard waved the large knife in his hand and looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun with disgust. He said with disdain, "Why don't you take a look in the mirror and see what you are?" Xiao Chun's face turned ashen when he heard the guard's words. He was about to step forward when Jingyu pulled him back. "Forget it." Jingyu pulled Xiao Chun and said, "Let's find a place to change first before going in. You're looking down on us." Qing Ji's face turned green and white as he flung his sleeves in displeasure. "How can there be a shop to change clothes outside?" Jingyu turned and looked around. All she could see were small stalls and hawkers. It was lively, but when they saw Jingyu and Xiao Chun walk in, they all chased them away with disdain. "Xiao Chun, how much money do we have left?" Jingyu frowned and looked at Xiao Chun. "None." Xiao Chun replied calmly and said, "We have to enter the Imperial City to meet up with the person we're meeting. If we don't enter the city, we don't have money." "Oh my God!" Jingyu wailed. She was about to cry. They didn't have money, and they weren't allowed to enter the city. How were they going to survive? Did Jingyu and the others have to spend the night outside the city? Jingyu thought about it and sighed deeply. After such a long journey, she was really tired. Jingyu looked at the stone floor beside her and thought that since she was already so dirty, she didn't mind being a little dirtier. "I'm so tired. Let's sit down and discuss." As soon as Jingyu sat down, Qingge couldn't take it anymore and sat down as well. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu and Qingge, who didn't care about their image at all. He pursed his lips and sat down as well. Xing Yi and Xing Er looked at each other. Their master was already sitting on the ground, but they didn't seem to mind and sat down as well. The group of people sat at the city gate of Cebu without any scruples. Chapter 1271. For the world-renowned 9th Emperor's and 9th Imperial concubine to be sitting at the city gate in such a manner, it would be too degrading if word got out. What do we do now? We can't enter for the time being. After Jingyu sat down, she didn't feel that there was anything wrong with her actions. She turned to look at Xiao Chun, Qin Gu, and the others and asked, "This is the Cebu Imperial City. It's definitely impossible to climb over it. Why don't we sneak in tomorrow?" Qin Gu blinked and said with a frown, "Otherwise, where can we find a pool to wash ourselves clean?" Jingyu sighed deeply and said, "Isn't it just entering the city? Why is it so difficult?" Xiao Qin sat silently to the side. When everyone heard Jingyu's words, they all sighed deeply. In this moment of silence, everyone lowered their heads in exhaustion. Just as Jingyu and the others were silent, a pair of embroidered shoes suddenly appeared in front of them. Then Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others saw some pieces of silver being thrown on the stone slab in front of them. Just like that, the silver was thrown in front of Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others. "Yuji, come back quickly." A very displeased male voice sounded. Jingyu was still wearing a veil on her face. She raised her head slightly and saw a pretty girl standing in front of Jingyu. When she heard the call behind her, she hurriedly responded, "You guys must not have eaten, right? Quickly take this money and buy something to eat." The girl smiled at Jingyu and the others, then turned around and walked toward the man not far away. "Miss!" Just as the girl was about to walk over, Chingu suddenly stood up and grabbed the girl's hand. The girl was so shocked that her eyes were filled with astonishment and her brows slowly furrowed. "Miss, it's you. Do you still remember me?" Chingu said excitedly as he grabbed the girl's hand. Jingyu and Xiao Chen also stood up. Their eyes were filled with helplessness, and the corners of their mouths carried faint wry smiles. "You are?" The girl was stunned by Qing Ji's question. She discreetly shook off Qing Ji's hand and asked in confusion, "In the vast foam plains, I'm the doctor who saved you. Do you still remember me? Look at me." Qing Gu raised his hand to wipe the dust off his face, then stared at the girl in front of him and spoke excitedly. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others naturally recognized the person in front of them. Back in the vast foam plains, Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others saved her from the hands of thieves. However, after this girl woke up, Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others left. They really didn't expect to meet her outside Cebu City. "Aya!" When the girl heard Qing Ji's words, her face suddenly revealed a look of surprise. She looked at Qinggu and sized him up before her gaze landed on Qing Ji's face. Although his face was a little dirty, it could still be seen clearly. The girl immediately exclaimed in surprise, "Yuji, what's wrong?" Just as the girl exclaimed, the man standing behind her strode over. He frowned slightly and glanced at Yuji. When he saw that she was fine, he turned his head to look at Jingyu and Xiao Chun. "Big brother Luo, I'm looking for the benefactor who saved us." The girl called Yuji was pleasantly surprised. She held the man's hand and said, "This is the doctor who saved us back then, and these heroes are the people who saved us from the hands of thieves." Chapter 1272. What? When the man heard Yu Ji's words, his eyes widened in shock. He turned to look at Xiao Chun, Jingyu, and the rest with a different gaze. "I'm Xiang Wanluo. I'm indebted to all of you for saving my life. I've been looking for my benefactors for so long, and I didn't expect to meet you here." The man who called himself Xiang Wanluo bowed slightly to Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others, his face full of excitement. "If you want to thank someone, you should thank him instead." Jingyu moved away slightly and said lightly, "If he didn't insist on saving us, I'm afraid we would have ignored him." "That may be the case, but didn't all of you save us in the end?" Xiang Wanluo smiled shyly and said to Jingyu, "But why are all of you outside the Imperial City?" "It's a long story." Qing Gu sighed deeply. After mulling over it for a while, he said helplessly, "There are always some enemies in the Jianghu. After such a long journey, I ended up like this. I wanted to enter the city to rest, but I was stopped by the guards. They really looked down on us. Just because our clothes are a little shabby, they treated us as beggars. Now, we have nowhere to go." Qing Gu sighed helplessly. Jingyu couldn't help but laugh when she saw how he spoke. "What?" When the woman heard Qing Ji's words, her face was filled with anger. "The guards of the city are actually so arrogant and despotic. They've really disgraced the Cebu." The woman turned to look at Qing Gu and said, "Benefactor, don't worry. I'll teach these snobbish guards a lesson for you." "No need, no need." Qing Gu waved his hands and said, "It's really our clothes that are not appropriate. I called you to ask for your help. Could you bring us a few sets of clothes into the city? Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be allowed to enter the city." "Benefactors, you want to enter the city?" Xiang Wanluo looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun. "I don't believe that there are people who won't let me enter the city." "Han Hai!" Xiang Wanluo's face turned cold as she turned around and shouted, "Young master." A man who looked like a housekeeper ran over and stood beside Xiang Wanluo, calling out respectfully, "Go clear the city gate and all the roads. I want to bring my benefactor into the prince's mansion." Xiang Wanluo's eyes were full of coldness. She gave the order without hesitation and threw out the token in her hand. When the butler saw Xiang Wanluo's action, his eyes were full of astonishment. "But, young master, this—" The butler called Hong Hai looked at the golden token in his hand and almost knelt down. He looked at Xiang Wanluo in surprise. "Do as I say." Xiang Wanluo didn't give the butler a chance to speak and ordered without hesitation. "Yes, young master." Hong Hai quickly responded. Under the dumbfounded gazes of Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others, they saw with their own eyes that because of the small token in the steward's hand, the imperial city gate that was originally bustling with people suddenly blocked everyone outside the city gate, revealing this incomparably spacious avenue. At the city gate, there were also 2 rows of guards standing in neat rows. This formation simply scared Qing Gu silly. Xiang Wanluo stepped aside politely and said to Qing Gu, Jingyu, and the rest, "Benefactors, please." Chapter 1273. I don't think this is a good idea. Qing Gu looked at the situation and felt a little embarrassed. He just wanted to enter the city, but he didn't expect to be watched by so many people. "Don't worry, no one will dare to stop my benefactor." As Xiang Wanluo spoke, her pair of cold eyes stared at the guard's face. "Who's the one who blocked our path just now?" "Forget it." Qing Gu waved his hands. "Let's enter the city first. These snobs, if I don't teach them a lesson, they won't know the immensity of heaven and earth." As Xiang Wanluo said that, she glanced at the guards and easily noticed that one of the guards was trembling all over. Even the weapon in his hand was shaking. He didn't expect that a beggar in rags whom he stopped was actually the benefactor of His Highness. And he even dared to chase away the person whom His Highness treated with respect like a fly. Needless to say, the final outcome of this guard could be said to be incomparably pitiful. Originally, guarding the city gate was such an easy job. However, because of this matter, he was beaten with a plank the next day and transferred to a distant battlefield. From then on, his life and death depended on the heavens. When Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest walked into the city, they saw 2 domineering sedan chairs after walking for a short distance. Obviously, they were here to pick up Xiang Wanluo and the girl named Yuji. Looking at this scene, it was really scary. "Thank you, young Master Xiang, for your help." Qing Gu bowed to Xiang Wanluo gratefully. "I don't deserve your thanks," Xiang Wanluo said as she waved her hands. Xiang Wanluo waved her hands and said, "If it weren't for you, my sister and I would have died. I'm not afraid of losing my life, but if my sister falls into the hands of those people..." As Xiang Wanluo said this, her face turned cold. Then she smiled at Qing Gu, Jingyu, and the rest. "Benefactors, are you looking for someone in the Imperial City? Do you have a place to stay? If you don't mind, why don't you stay at my residence for a few days?" This, Qingge paused for a moment and turned to look at Xiao Chun and Jingyu. Since young Master Xiang is so kind, we won't refuse. Xiao Chun replied calmly, pursing his lips slightly. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun, but didn't say anything. Since Xiao Chun had agreed to it, he must have his reasons. It was impossible that Xiao Chun didn't hear what Xiang Wanluo said just now. The words Prince's Mansion could easily let Jingyu and Xiao Chun know who the siblings were. Now that Xiao Chun had taken the initiative to agree, he must have his reasons. In the prince's residence, Jingyu and Xiao Chun received the best treatment after Xiang Wanluo explained her identity. The people in the prince's residence were very polite to Jingyu and Xiao Chun. Jingyu didn't like to deal with people, not to mention Xiao Chun. The matter of dealing with the people in the prince's residence was handed over to Qingge. Qingge had a glib tongue. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest changed their outfits. Qingge and Xiang Wanluo were already calling each other brothers. They sat in the front yard and seemed to get along very well. In the house, Jingyu changed into a dark blue dress. This dress belonged to Jingyu. Both of them were about the same height, so this dress fit her perfectly. As for Xiao Chun, he changed into a dark purple dress. This purple was like the color of ink, and it fit Xiao Chun just right. Chapter 1274. There was only one prince of Cebu, and that was the emperor's biological brother, Prince Xiang. Xiang Wanluo was the crown prince, the eldest son of Prince Xiang. Xiang Yuji was the second daughter and was also doted on by the crown prince. The prince's residence could be said to be the most exquisite place in the imperial city apart from the imperial palace. Jingyu walked along the corridor and looked at the decorations in front of her. She was amazed. Xiao Chun, why are we staying at the prince's residence? Jingyu was still wearing the veil on her head, but she had changed it to a white one. She turned to look at Xiao Chun, who was still wearing a mask, and asked curiously, "Of course, it's for convenience." Xiao Chun didn't say much. He just replied casually and led Jingyu to the front yard. "This is my 9th brother and 9th sister-in-law." Qingge stood up and introduced Xiao Chun and Jingyu, but he didn't mention their real names. Xiang Wanluo looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun, who were wearing the veil and mask, and knew that they didn't intend to show their faces to others. Xiang Wanluo naturally wouldn't force them. She chatted with everyone in the courtyard for a while before leaving. She said that she wanted to let Jingyu and Xiao Chun have a good rest. Jingyu raised her eyebrows calmly when she saw that Xiang Wanluo had left. "This crown prince is really discerning," Jingyu commented casually. "Phew." Qingge wiped his face silently and turned to look at Xiao Chun. "9th brother, why are you staying at the prince's residence? Don't you know that this is the prince's residence? What if we are exposed here? So, you have to think twice before you speak." Xiao Chun raised his eyebrows calmly and looked at Qingge as he spoke. "9th brother." Qingge's face instantly turned bitter. For some reason, he felt as though a knife was hanging on his neck at any time. Prince Xiang is not only the emperor's biological brother in the Cebu, but he's also the person with the most authority in the Cebu. If I remember correctly, this crown prince and Wei Ling don't seem to have a good relationship, Xiao Chun said casually. Isn't Wei Ling the crown prince? Crown prince and the crown prince have a bad relationship? Jingyu blinked her eyes in confusion. It's probably because... Xiao Chun's eyes were very indifferent as he said. Back then, there was a lot of news in Shiwu. The matter of the crown prince and the crown prince fighting over the prime minister's daughter seemed to be quite big. Fuck! Fighting for a woman's daughter? Jingyu's eyes widened with interest. She stared at Xiao Chun and said, "Tell me, what's going on? Who won in the end?" The prime minister's daughter is known as the most beautiful woman in the Cebu. During the state banquet in the palace, she attracted the crown prince, Wei Ling, but moved the crown prince, Xiang Wanluo. Both of them liked the prime minister's daughter, but the prime minister's daughter insisted on marrying the crown prince. If both of them liked each other, they would have married each other. However, the crown prince only gave her the position of a concubine after marrying her. Xiao Chen's lips curled up slightly as he said, How could the crown prince not be angry when his beloved woman was treated this way? Oh! When Xiao Chun said this, Jingyu instantly understood and nodded. It's this kind of drama again. It's because of this that the two of them formed a feud. Xiao Chun played with Jingyu's fingers in boredom as he said, "We're in the prince's residence." Even if Wei Ling knew about it, Xiang Wanluo might not let Wei Ling take us away. Chapter 1275. If that's the case, Jingyu smiled happily. It seems like it will be fun. Xiao Chun raised his hand and pinched Jingyu's face. His eyes were full of affection. So, what are we going to do now? Jingyu looked up at Xiao Chun and asked, "Have a good rest?" Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said, "It will be Cebu's dance competition festival soon. When the gate of the palace opens, it will be the time for us to enter. We will have to leave after stealing Wuji, so we can't stay any longer." Dance competition? Jingyu widened her eyes in curiosity and stared at Xiao Chun. Her eyes were full of questions. Dance competition is also known as martial arts competition. In Cebu, martial arts are practiced. However, in the palace, martial arts are not allowed. Hence, this dance competition festival is held to celebrate, Xiao Chun explained patiently. If I remember correctly, the dance competition festival will be held soon. However, I still need to ask the owner of this place for the exact time. Xiao Chun lowered his eyes and pursed his lips. Oh, I see. Jingyu's eyes were shining. Jingyu had been to the northern pastoral region before. Now that she was in Cebu, she had a strange feeling every time she visited a country. It turned out that the customs of these countries were so different. The corners of Jingyu's mouth curled up slightly. In the following days, Jingyu and Xiao Chun rested in the prince's residence. It had to be said that there was no need to worry about safety in the prince's residence. This was probably the most heavily guarded place besides the imperial city. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others had saved the crown prince. The prince and his wife came over to take a look. Of course, it was just a token greeting. To put it bluntly, they just treated her as a friend and did not make a big fuss. After that, there was no news from them. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest also had some peace. In the prince's residence in Cebu, Jingyu sat alone in the courtyard. Xiao Chun and Xing Yi had left the residence. Jingyu did not leave with them, but waited in the residence. "Miss you." Just as Jingyu was leisurely sipping her tea, a voice rang out from outside. Jingyu turned her head and saw Xiang Yuji striding over with a glance. "So it's Miss Yuji." Jingyu slowly stood up and bowed slightly towards Yuji to greet her. "Miss you. Why are you sitting here alone?" Xiang Yuji blinked slightly and looked at Jingyu. "Where are young Master Xing and the rest?" "Oh, they went out. I was lazy and missed the time to go out with them." Jingyu smiled at Xiang Yuji. "It just so happens that I'm about to go out for a while. How about Miss you come with me? I'll be going to the palace soon, and my mother wants me to buy some pretty clothes and jewelry." Xiang Yuji looked at Jingyu expectantly and asked, "All right, I also want to see how prosperous the Cebu Imperial City is." Jingyu paused for a moment and nodded in agreement. Xiang Yuji was obviously very happy. She asked the butler to prepare a sedan. Xing Er followed Jingyu and went out with Xiang Yuji's sedan. Xiang Yuji was a very talkative person. Along the way, she told Jingyu about the Imperial City. Chapter 1276. Miss Yu doesn't look like someone from Cebu. Why are you here? Xiang Yuji sat in the palanquin and looked at Jingyu in confusion. "We're here to find medicine." Jingyu lowered her head slightly and said, "We've traveled all over the 4 countries and only heard of the whereabouts of this medicine in Cebu. That's why we're here." "Medicine? Whose body isn't well? What medicine do you want? I also have a lot of medicine in my residence. The doctors in the Imperial City are highly skilled. You can take a look at them," Xiang Yuji said. When Jingyu heard Xiang Yuji's words, she slowly shook her head. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Miss Yuji. However, this medicine isn't so easy to obtain." Jingyu paused and pursed her lips. She didn't intend to say anything more. Xiang Yuji asked a few more questions, but Jingyu evaded them all. Xiang Yuji also understood that Jingyu didn't intend to say anything more. When the carriage arrived at a bustling area, it stopped. Xiang Yuji and Jingyu walked on the street, their ears filled with noise. Cebu's imperial city was indeed bustling. Xiang Yuji seemed to be very happy. She looked at this and that on the street and finally walked into a very large jewelry shop. The shop's business was very good. There was a dazzling lineup of gold and silver jewelry. Xiang Yuji looked around, but didn't see anything nice. She moved her feet and saw a very beautiful hairpin. She quickly said, "I want this. I want this." However, just as Xiang Yuji finished speaking, another voice sounded from the side. "I saw it first." Xiang Yuji turned her head and saw a girl standing next to her. She had simple hair accessories and was dressed like a maidservant. Xiang Yuji frowned and said with dissatisfaction, "Shopkeeper, wrap this hairpin up." The maidservant didn't even look at Xiang Yuji. She turned her head and said to the shopkeeper, "Hey, which family's young miss are you? You have no manners." Xiang Yuji originally wanted to talk things out, but who would have thought that this person would be so arrogant? Immediately, Xiang Yuji's heart burned with anger. She raised her voice and shouted, "This young miss saw this hairpin first. Where did this wild girl come from?" The maidservant looked at Xiang Yuji with disdain and said, "Madam Wan wants this hairpin." "Madam Wan?" When Xiang heard the maidservant say this name, she was stunned. Then, as if she heard something funny, she immediately laughed and said disdainfully, "She's just a crown prince's consort." "Do you really think she's the crown prince's consort?" Xiang Yuji emphasized the two words side consort, and her eyes were filled with disdain. "How dare you?" That servant girl's face alternated between red and white from Xiang Yuji's words. Everyone knew that His Highness the Crown Prince only had one concubine. Although she was only a side concubine, everyone felt that this side concubine was likely to be promoted to main concubine. If the Crown Prince became the Emperor, then the Crown Prince's consort would be the Empress. It was no wonder that the maidservant was so unscrupulous. She had never met anyone who dared to talk back after hearing the title. Now, she had attracted all the onlookers. "I'll tell you. Go back and tell Muron Wan or that I want something from Xiang Yuji. She doesn't deserve to fight with me. In the end, she's just a consort. Who knows if she'll offend the Crown Prince and get divorced." Chapter 1277. The moment Xiang Yuji said that, the servant girl's expression changed. Xiang Yuji, the second young mistress of the prince's residence. That was the person who was doted on by the Empress Dowager. She was even more honorable than the princess. "So it's young Mistress Xiang? This servant is blind." When the servant girl heard Xiang Yuji introduce herself, she bowed her head and her face turned pale. She did not dare to say another word. "Let's go." Xiang Yuji coldly snorted in disdain. Like master, like servant. Just look at this face, it was really disgusting. Xiang Yuji took the hairpin that the shopkeeper handed over. As if on purpose, she smashed the hairpin in front of the servant. "What bad luck!" Xiang Yuji kicked the broken hairpin to the side in disdain and said arrogantly, "I like this hairpin, so I'm going to make it disappear." Xiang Yuji's actions could be said to be incomparably infuriating, making the servant girl who was standing at the side so angry that the embroidered handkerchief in her hand was crumpled into a ball. How could she endure such vexation? However, she had to endure it. She could not do anything about it. Jingyu had been following behind Xiang Yuji the entire time. After they walked out of the door, she turned her head slightly and glanced at the servant girl. She raised her eyebrows slightly and followed behind Xiang Yuji. She could still hear the servant girl's unhappy nagging. "Miss Yuji." Jingyu pursed her lips and called out, "I'm so sorry to have made a fool of myself in front of Miss Yu." Xiang Yuji turned her head to look at Jingyu. She raised her hand and brushed her hair in embarrassment. "It's okay." Jingyu shook her head slightly and said, "I'm just curious. I heard that the Crown Prince's concubine should be the Crown Prince's sweetheart?" Jingyu turned her head and looked at Xiang Yuji in confusion. Xiang Yuji sighed deeply and said, "You know about it? This is?" Jingyu blinked and looked at Xiang Yuji in confusion. It's not something that can't be said. It's just that my big brother is too stupid. How could he be deceived by this kind of woman? When Xiang Yuji said this, she suddenly felt a little indignant. She said unhappily, Muron Wan and I are about the same age, and we used to have a good relationship in this circle. Between the restaurant and tea house, Jingyu and Xiang Yuji sat at a table. Xiang Yuji told Jingyu something that others didn't know. Muron Wan was the prime minister's daughter and was famous in the imperial city at that time. Naturally, Xiang Yuji was not weak either. The two of them were known as the absolute couple in the imperial city. However, they did not expect that because of the crown prince's intervention, Xiang Yuji would completely recognize Muron Wan. It turned out that Muron Wan had approached Xiang Yuji to climb up the crown prince's high branch. However, for some reason, Xiang Wanluo's heart was taken away. It was nothing more than a drama of two men fighting for a woman. However, according to Xiang Yuji, Muron Wan was the one who threw herself at the crown prince and betrayed Xiang Wanluo? What the hell is all this? After Jingyu listened to the whole story, she silently raised her hand to her forehead. She only wanted to say 4 words. The circle of the rich was really messy. So because of this matter, Muron Wan and I are at odds. Xiang Yuji spread her hands calmly and said, if there is me, there will be no her. If there is her, there will be no me. Jingyu blinked and looked at Xiang Yuji with pursed lips. It seems that your relationship with the crown prince is not bad. Chapter 1278. Chill. Xiang Yuji waved her hands and said, Sister you mustn't tell my big brother. If he knows that I'm close to Brother Crown Prince, he'll be very angry. Jingyu looked at Xiang Yuji's aggrieved expression and smiled faintly. Brother Crown Prince is a very good person, but Big Brother has been brooding over Muron Wan's matter. Xiang Yuji sighed helplessly. I don't know when Brother Crown Prince will be able to reconcile with Big Brother, just like how they were when they were young. Jingyu and Xiang Yuji sat in the tea house and listened to the young lady talk about Xiang Wanluo and Wei Ling's past. It was really interesting. She had never thought that Wei Ling would be like this when he was young and before he became the crown prince. When Jingyu and Xiang Yuji returned to the prince's residence, Xiao Chun, Xing Yi, and Qing Ge had all returned and were chatting in the courtyard. When he saw Jingyu and Xiang Yuji, Xiao Chun turned and walked over to them. Brother Xiao, I've returned Sister Yu to you. Xiang Yuji winked at Xiao Chun mischievously. When she saw Xiao Chun holding Jingyu's hand and sizing her up, she said enviously, Don't worry, Sister Yu is perfectly fine. Not a single strand of hair is missing. Xiao Chun pursed his lips and turned to Xiang Yuji. Your big brother is looking for you. Oh really? How could I forget to buy something again? When Xiang Yuji heard Xiao Chen's words, she paused for a moment and suddenly remembered what she was going to do. However, because of the maid, Xiang Yuji forgot about it. Xiang Yuji said hurriedly to Jingyu and Xiao Chun before she turned and left. Jingyu looked at Xiang Yuji and shook her head. Why didn't you wait for me to come back? Xiao Chun turned to Jingyu and asked. It's fine. Jingyu held Xiao Chen's hand and shook her head slightly. Everyone sat together and talked. They knew that Xiao Chun and Xing Yi had gone to meet someone and brought back some money. The feeling of not having any money was extremely uncomfortable. The next morning, Jingyu and Xiao Chun had just woken up. After washing up, they heard voices coming from outside. Why was the courtyard so lively so early in the morning? Jingyu and Xiao Chun went out of the room. Master, madam. Xing strode over and said with his head lowered, The Crown Prince of Cebu is here. Ah? When Jingyu heard Xing mention the lotus flower, she frowned and said, What did you just say? The Crown Prince of Cebu is here? Come here? Yes. Second Xing's expression was conflicted as well. He came really quickly. Compared to Jingyu's surprise, Xiao Chun was much calmer. What do we do now? Jingyu looked up at Xiao Chun and asked. Wait. Xiao Chun held Jingyu's hand and sat on a stone chair outside the courtyard. There was still warm tea boiling on the stone table. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and Qingge sat on the stone chair with teacups in their hands and were talking in detail. When Wei Ling arrived at the courtyard, this was the first scene he saw. Xiao Chun and Jingyu were sitting in a place filled with the fragrance of tea. Xing Yi and Xing Er were standing beside them. This scene actually made him dazed. Chapter 1279. It was as though she had arrived at the master's residence. Even Xiang Wanluo, who was behind him, felt the same way. This was obviously his residence, but the moment she stepped in, she felt as though she was a guest. This feeling was really strange. Fortunately, it only made Xiang Wanluo absent-minded for a moment. She quickly took a step forward and was about to introduce them when she saw Xiao Chun and Jingyu slowly standing up. Crown Prince Wei, long time no see. Xiao Chen's lips curved up slightly. This curve gave off a very strange feeling. He lowered his head slightly and greeted them as though they were old friends. This made Xiang Wanluo, who was about to introduce them, dumbfounded. Huh? What a coincidence to meet you at the Cebu. Wei Ling's pair of dark eyes stared at Xiao Chun and Jingyu. Then his gaze landed on Xiao Chun and greeted him as though they were good friends. However, in this greeting, there was a hint of coldness. Crown Prince Wei's news is still as up-to-date as ever, Xiao Chun said with pursed lips. It hasn't even been 3 days and you've already rushed over? When I got the news of your arrival, I couldn't wait to rush over. Wei Ling said calmly. How could I dare to trouble Crown Prince Wei? We'll meet sooner or later, right? Xiao Chun continued to reply. Xiang Wanluo stood at the side and listened to their conversation. She didn't understand what was going on at all. However, from the looks of it, Xiao Chun and Wei Ling knew each other, and their relationship didn't seem to be ordinary. Jingyu looked at the two of them with a headache. They were saying strange things and beating around the bush. What are you doing here? Jingyu couldn't stand it anymore. She pulled Xiao Chun and took a step forward. She looked at Wei Ling indifferently and asked, Shouldn't I be the one asking you this? When Wei Ling heard Jingyu's question, he paused slightly and looked at Jingyu helplessly. If Wei Ling and Xiao Chun were at loggerheads, then when he talked to Jingyu, it was a different feeling. It was a strange feeling that couldn't be described with words. We're here to look for something. Don't worry. Jingyu moved closer to Wei Ling and said with a smile, We won't turn your Cebu palace upside down. You, Wei Ling, but he didn't know what to say. He sighed helplessly. He looked at Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others. This is my jade pendant. Please do me the honor. Wei Ling raised his hand and handed over a white jade pendant. Jingyu looked at the jade pendant and raised her eyebrows slightly. Are you inviting a wolf into your house? Huh? Wei Ling laughed heartily and said, It's better than letting you go in by yourselves. Wei Ling said with a teasing tone. Xiao Chun took the jade pendant from Wei Ling and said lightly, We were just about to do something. Since you've brought us the item, we won't go in by ourselves. Wei Ling smiled and left after saying a few words. After sending Wei Ling off, Xiang Wanluo was still in a daze. She didn't know what had just happened. Xiang Wanluo was already unhappy that the crown prince had come to the prince's residence. She didn't expect that Wei Ling was here for Jingyu and Xiao Chun. Chapter 1280. Xiang Wanluo was really surprised that the crown prince would make a trip down personally. It was not difficult to tell that Jingyu and Xiao Chun were not ordinary people. Could it be that the crown prince was indebted to them in the past? But from their tone, it did not seem to be the case. When Xiang Wanluo returned to the courtyard, Xiao Chun and Jingyu were still drinking tea and chatting. They were playing with the jade pendant that Wei Ling gave them. Xiang Wanluo looked at the jade pendant curiously. It looked like an ordinary piece of white jade. It was so useful that it could be used to enter and leave the palace freely. Young Master Xiao, miss you. Xiang Wanluo sat down on the other chair. Her gaze fell on the jade pendant, and she frowned slightly. Your Highness? Jingyu sat up straight and nodded slightly at Xiang Wanluo. Both of you know the crown prince? Xiang Wanluo thought for a while and asked. We've met a few times. Jingyu smiled and said, It's just that I'm not surprised that the crown prince would come to the prince's residence to look for us. We've caused you trouble. It's fine. Xiang Wanluo smiled and shook her head. This jade pendant is the crown prince's private property. If the both of you are interested in the dance competition 3 days later, you can use this to enter the palace and see what my Cebu's dance competition looks like. Of course, we'll go and see. Xiao Chen nodded slowly. Xiang Wanluo left after chatting for a while, but she seemed to have understood something. At night, Jingyu and Xiao Chen were lying on the bed. Jingyu was lying on the bed with a book in her hand. Her golden green eyes were blinking happily. Reading a storybook again? When Xiao Chen walked over, he saw the drawing and lowered his head helplessly. He did not understand why Jingyu was still so obsessed with storybooks at such an age. Ayaya, you don't know the joy of reading storybooks. Jingyu pushed Xiao Chen away in disgust and continued reading her storybook. For some reason, Jingyu was particularly fond of these strange stories. From modern times to ancient times, Jingyu felt that it was very interesting. In the beginning, the stories written in ancient times were very awkward, but after reading more, she didn't feel anything. She could understand it easily, which led to Jingyu being completely fascinated by storybooks. Stop reading. Xiao Chen unhappily took the story from Jingyu's hands. Hey. Jingyu hurriedly got up and glared at Xiao Chen accusingly. Talk to me. Xiao Chen deeply felt that this bullshit storybook had stolen his woman. So after snatching the storybook from Jingyu's hands, he threw it aside without saying anything and reached out to hug Jingyu, not letting her move. Hey, Xiao Chen, how can you treat my storybook like this? Jingyu looked at the storybook that was mercilessly thrown on the table and glared at Xiao Chen angrily. Okay. Xiao Chen looked at Jingyu's angry face and very calmly leaned over to kiss Jingyu's lips. With a faint smile in his eyes, he said, Why are you looking at a storybook? Just look at me. I'm better looking than a storybook. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen shamelessly praising her and raised her hand to pinch Xiao Chen's cheeks. She pulled and said, I don't think it's good looking. Look, it's so ugly. Chapter 1281. Xiao Chen dodged away from Jingyu's hands. He closed his eyes slightly and buried his head in Jingyu's neck, leaving a light kiss on her skin. The ticklish feeling made Jingyu dodge to one side. Xiao Chen stopped fooling around. Jingyu's dodging body was hugged even tighter by Xiao Chen. She could hear his steady breathing, and he looked like he was about to fall asleep. What an annoying fellow. He said that he wanted to talk to me, but he fell asleep. Although Jingyu was complaining, there was a faint smile on her face. She hugged Xiao Chen back and closed her eyes slowly. They stayed in the prince's residence for 3 days until the arrival of the dance competition. The dance competition was not only lively in the palace, but also outside the palace. Jingyu and Xiao Chen sat in the sedan to enter the palace. They could hear all kinds of noises coming from the streets. Jingyu was wearing a gauze hat and a light gauze outer garment. At first glance, she gave off a mysterious feeling. Jingyu and Xiao Chen were wearing a black brocade robe and a metal mask. They exuded an aura that prevented strangers from getting close to them. Qinggu, Xing-Yi, and Xing-Er had also changed into formal attire. As they were not allowed to bring weapons into the palace, the 5 of them came to the Cebu palace empty-handed. Jingyu had never liked the palace. She disliked it when she was in Tokyo. Now that she was in the Cebu, she could not bring herself to like it. After a casual glance, she turned her head away and followed Xiao Chen quietly without saying a word. There were many people coming and going in the palace. Xiang Wanluo and Xiang Yuji obviously had many friends in this social circle. Xiao Chen and Jingyu just found a seat at the end and did not intend to talk. The emperor of the Cebu palace looked a little old. Jingyu took a quick glance at his white hair and looked away. The banquet was very lively. There were all kinds of dances. Jingyu and Xiao Chen were dazzled. This dance competition was indeed worthy of its name. The Cebu Palace's dance was not only for women, but also for men. Jingyu looked very serious as she watched those people dance on the stage. In the noisy hall, The emperor of the Cebu left because he was not feeling well. The crown prince presided over the banquet. "How are you?" While Jingyu was playing with the quilt in her hand, she heard a question from above her head. Jingyu looked up when she heard the question. "Very good." Xiao Chun looked indifferently at Wei Ling, who was standing in front of them. He looked at Wei Ling and said calmly, "Your Highness." Just as Wei Ling was about to say something, someone called out to him. Wei Ling frowned slightly. He looked deeply at Xiao Chun and Jingyu, then turned and left. The Crown Prince of Cebu was still the center of attention at this banquet. If he stayed with Xiao Chun and Jingyu for too long, it would naturally arouse suspicion. Hence, Wei Ling did not stay for too long. I'm going to look for Wu Ji with Xing Yi," Xiao Chun said to Jingyu after drinking for a while. "Okay, I'll wait for you to come back." Jingyu looked up at Xiao Chun and smiled at Xiao Chun. In this noisy palace banquet, Xiao Chun and Xing Yi left. Qin Gu and Xiang Wanluo chatted happily with the crowd. Chapter 1282. "Sister Yu," Xiang Yuji called out. Jingyu turned around with a smile. "Why don't I see Brother Xiao?" Xiang Yuji walked to Jingyu's side and looked around curiously. "He went out for a walk," Jingyu said calmly. "He said he was curious about what the palace looked like. He should be back soon." "I see." Xiang Yuji nodded and said, "Don't just sit here. I'll bring you to meet my brother Crown Prince and brother Zisu, who was also saved by you last time," Xiang Yuji said as she pulled Jingyu's hand and squeezed into the crowd. Jingyu didn't even have a chance to refute before she was pulled into the crowd by Xiang Yuji. In this circle, most of the people were young women. At this moment, a group of people were sitting together and chatting fervently. Seeing Xiang Yuji pull Jingyu over and hearing Xiang Yuji's introduction, everyone knew who Jingyu was. As for the person called Zisu, he was the son of a general. Seeing Xiang Yuji's shy expression, Jingyu knew a little about him. "Brother Zisu, this is the benefactor who saved us in the plains. This is Sister Yu." Xiang Yuji smiled shyly and said to Qin Zisu, "Lady Yu." Seeing that Qin Zisu was a general and had a dignified aura, he looked at Jingyu curiously and bowed slightly to greet her. Jingyu responded. Seeing how Xiang Yuji was enthusiastically talking to Qin Zisu, while the handsome man only responded indifferently, and seeing Xiang Yuji's sad eyes, Jingyu sighed helplessly and turned her head away without saying anything. Jingyu couldn't get a word in as she listened to the conversation between the young masters and young ladies. She turned and sat down. Not long after she sat down, Wei Ling came to Jingyu's side. "What are you doing here?" Jingyu looked at the ruddy-faced Wei Ling sitting beside her and asked with a slight frown, "I go wherever I want to go. Do I need to tell you why?" Wei Ling narrowed his eyes and looked at Jingyu, who was wearing a veil. He raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a trace of a smile in his eyes. He did not know why, but he actually missed the way Jingyu spoke to him. In this palace, who didn't bow and scrape when they saw him. Even their own brothers and sisters weren't necessarily close. However, every time he heard Jingyu's tone, there wasn't the slightest bit of etiquette, but he felt very close to her. Jingyu didn't care and rolled her eyes. Yes, yes, yes. You are the crown prince. You are the boss." When Wei Ling heard Jingyu's disdainful tone, he laughed joyfully. That bright and beautiful smile almost dazzled people's eyes. This scene fell clearly into the eyes of a woman sitting on a high seat not far away. The woman was dressed in elegant and luxurious clothes. She was incomparably beautiful. There were girls around her who tried their best to talk to her, but they didn't expect that the woman's attention would be on Wei Ling. Without a doubt, this woman was Wei Ling's concubine, Murong Wan. Who was that woman? Murong Wan wasn't the only one who saw Wei Ling's actions. Some of the adults, young masters, and young ladies also saw it. They all looked surprised. Chapter 1283. Everyone knew what kind of temper the Crown Prince had. He was the kind of person who would speak less and never reveal more than one expression. He would only be closer to people he was familiar with. He had always been the kind of person who didn't want to talk to others. But now, at this banquet, he was actually chatting and laughing with an unknown woman. Jingyu's appearance with her face covered was already a bit eye-catching. Fortunately, there were no requirements for this in the palace, so it was only at the beginning. In addition, during the first half of the banquet, this woman didn't interact with anyone. So, no one took it to heart. But they didn't expect that the crown prince would take the initiative to sit next to this woman and laugh so happily because he was talking to her. She seems to be the crown prince's friend. The maid next to Muron Wan bowed her head and said, "When I left the palace to buy jewelry for my master, I also saw this girl. But she was wearing a veil, so I didn't see her face. So, she's from the crown prince's residence." Muron Wan's eyes were full of a fierce light. She clenched her fists and slowly asked, "What's her name? Where did she come from?" "Go and find out." "Yes, I'll go now." The maid next to Muron Wan answered and turned to leave. Jingyu looked at Wei Ling, who was sticking to her side and not leaving. She stared at Wei Ling in disgust and said, "Are you going to leave or not? If you don't leave, I'll leave by myself. Don't follow me." Jingyu said and was about to stand up. "Jingyu, you're not giving me face." Wei Ling raised his hand to stop Jingyu. He frowned and said unhappily, "Now that Xiao Chun is turning the palace upside down in Cebu, shouldn't you please me? If I'm unhappy and order the arrest of the assassin, I'd like to see if Xiao Chun will be sent to Cebu's prison for a few days." Wei Ling slowly narrowed his eyes and said, "How dare you?" Jingyu's expression changed when she heard Wei Ling's words. Beneath the veil, her golden green eyes flickered with a seductive light. She said coldly, "Isn't it just sitting? What's wrong with that? Isn't that good?" Wei Ling watched as Jingyu sat down and nodded happily. Just as he was about to speak, a guard hurried over and whispered something into Wei Ling's ear. Immediately, Wei Ling's expression changed. "Where are they?" Wei Ling looked up and asked. "In the side hall." The guard replied respectfully, "Let's go." Wei Ling immediately stood up and left. Jingyu watched as Wei Ling left in a hurry. She raised her eyebrows in confusion. What happened? However, it didn't seem to have anything to do with her. Did Xiao Chun and Xing Yi find the medicine? Jingyu couldn't stand this boring banquet any longer. Just as she was about to stand up and walk over to Xiang Yuji, suddenly, a figure appeared in front of her and blocked her path. "Miss you," a gentle voice sounded. Jingyu stopped in her tracks and turned her head to look. A woman in a formal dress was walking over. Her waist and hand movements were very moving. "You are?" Jingyu looked at the woman standing in front of her with a puzzled expression. She looked at the woman's face through the veil and realized who she was. However, Jingyu still asked politely, Chapter 1284. How dare you? Why don't you kneel down and greet the crown prince's concubine? The servant immediately revealed the identity of the person in front of her. "It's fine." Muron Wan calmly waved her hand and said, "Miss Yu is from Jianghu, so I'm afraid you don't know the rules of the palace. I won't blame someone who doesn't know the rules of the imperial family." Yes, the concubine is kind. The servant very much agreed and bowed to flatter her. Jingyu was stunned to see this group of people like this. She couldn't help but want to slap herself. Since she knew who she was, why did she ask? She had only asked one question, but this woman had actually humiliated Jingyu from head to toe without leaving a trace. She was clearly saying that Jingyu didn't know etiquette and was just a person from Jianghu. So it's the concubine. Jingyu paused for a moment before answering with a sudden realization. She smiled and said, "May I know why you're blocking my way, concubine consort?" "You." The servant saw that Jingyu was completely unruly and suddenly widened her eyes. If she had said that she was the concubine, Jingyu would have saluted, but Jingyu didn't play by the rules at all. "You're called Miss Yu, right?" Muron Wan seemed to feel uncomfortable because of Jingyu's answer. She pursed her lips and said, "I just saw you and the crown prince talking so enthusiastically, so I wanted to ask, how did you and the crown prince meet?" As soon as Muron Wan asked this question, Jingyu immediately understood why the legendary crown prince's concubine was blocking her way. Did she think that the crown prince liked her? "I don't know him. Jingyu rolled her eyes speechlessly. She really didn't understand this woman's gaze. Could it be that she couldn't tell that the fight between her and Wei Ling was just a flash of light? Jingyu was very bored and a little irritated. Now she didn't have any mood to talk and turned to leave. Stop! Muron Wan looked at Jingyu, who turned to leave without any etiquette and suddenly became anxious. She quickly raised her voice and said unhappily, I'm talking to you. I'm not deaf. I can't hear you. Jingyu angrily turned to look at the beautiful Muron Wan and said with a frown, Didn't I answer you? If you have the time to ask about my origin, you should care about the crown prince. You? Muron Wan's face changed slightly. She wanted to show her strength to this woman, but she did not expect to be taught a lesson instead. Where did you come from? Dare to talk to the concubine. Someone, slap her. The servant girl's face became angry. She grabbed Muron Wan's arm and raised her voice. When Muron Wan heard the servant girl's words, she did not say anything to stop her. This time, Jingyu was so angry that she laughed. She didn't do anything, but she was humiliated by this woman. Now, she even wanted to hit her. This world was truly hilarious to a certain extent. Get out of my way! Jingyu looked at the concubine, who rolled up her sleeves and was about to come forward. A fierce light flashed in her eyes. In order to make it easier for Xiao Chun, Jingyu didn't want to cause any trouble at the banquet. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so good-tempered to endure. Chapter 1285. Jingyu looked at the person who stepped forward, and almost without thinking, she lifted her foot and kicked out. The maidservant did not expect that a young lady would actually lift her foot and kick her without saying anything. She was kicked to the ground firmly. Ouch! The commotion had attracted everyone's attention. Jingyu's kick immediately attracted everyone's attention. You! How dare you! Muron Wan quickly dodged and looked at the person who was kicked to the ground by Jingyu. Her eyes were full of astonishment. Such a rude action, such a lack of etiquette, and such an arrogant and domineering attitude. Was this really something a woman would do? Sister Yu, Xiang Yuji, and Xiang Wanluo came over. Qing Ge looked at Jingyu in surprise, and then looked at the woman who was kicked to the ground. He frowned in confusion. What a good concubine of the crown prince. What's so great about being a concubine of the crown prince? HM? Jingyu stood there in a purple robe, the veil on her face fluttering slightly. Her indifferent words came from Jingyu's mouth. I've told you, I have nothing to do with your crown prince. Jingyu flicked her sleeves disdainfully and looked sideways at Xiang Wanluo as she said seriously, You don't have to guard against me as if I'm a thief. With your looks, Wei Ling actually took a fancy to you. Your Highness, it's your blessing that you didn't marry this woman. You have a heart of snakes and scorpions. Everyone you see is an enemy and wants to get rid of them. Aren't you tired? Jingyu turned and walked away disdainfully. You. Muron Wan swore to God that she had never been treated like this in her whole life. Whether it was her previous identity as the Prime Minister's daughter or the current Crown Prince's concubine, who was not respectful to her. When Wei Ling came back from the side hall, he saw this scene. He frowned and walked over. What happened? Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince. The people around him bowed. Your Highness, you have to help me. When Muron Wan saw Wei Ling arrive, her face was suddenly covered with tears. Her tear-stained face was particularly pitiful. Jingyu was not in a hurry. At this time, she should wait for this woman to complain first. Speak slowly. Wei Ling looked at Jingyu, who was standing in place, and then looked at Muron Wan. He seemed to vaguely remember something. He frowned slightly and spoke very indifferently. I just wanted to say hello to Miss Yu, but I didn't expect Miss Yu to. It must be that I didn't pay attention to my words, which made Miss Yu angry and hit my people. Muron Wan said pitifully. Jingyu, who had been listening the whole time, almost wanted to call a doctor because of this woman's mouth. After Wei Ling heard Muron Wan's words, he slowly turned his head to look at Jingyu and asked, Is that so? How would I dare to deceive Your Highness? Muron Wan said again. Yes, she's right. Jingyu glanced at Muron Wan and answered very calmly. When Jingyu answered, Everyone's expression suddenly became strange. Although Morong Wan was right, it was easy for people to misinterpret her meaning. It completely became Jing Yu's fault. But the truth was not only Jing Yu's fault. Sister Yu. When Xiang Yuji heard Jing Yu's answer, she immediately stamped her feet anxiously. Chapter 1286. Crown Prince Wei. Your concubine is truly amazing. Jing Yu ignored Xiang Yuji. She looked at Morong Wan, who was wiping her tears, and found it funny. She said, "You're blocking my way, and you're telling me that you don't know the etiquette of the Shiwu Palace? You said I'm a country bumpkin and not worthy of being the crown prince's concubine's eyes?" Jing Yu found it funny and said, "I only said a few words to Crown Prince Wei, and you think your crown prince will take me into his room? You're such a scheming woman, yet you still want to be the crown prince's concubine. If the Cebu has you as the crown prince's concubine, and you become the empress of the Cebu in the future, I don't think there's any need for your country to exist anymore." "There's more." Jing Yu's sharp eyes saw a black shadow coming in from around the corner. She said with disdain, "Next time, please look carefully. I'm a married woman. Do you think I want to be the crown prince's concubine?" "What?" Morong Wan was completely dumbfounded by Jing Yu's words. "You are." Xiao Chun, dressed in a black robe, walked with steady steps to Jing Yu's side. He looked at the situation in front of him and slowly frowned. His dark eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. He swept his gaze over everyone before finally landing on Morong Wan. Those dark eyes seemed to be filled with endless ice and thick, killing intent. Just this one glance made Morong Wan's heart stop beating the moment she met Xiao Chun's eyes. When Xiao Chun looked away, he still felt a strong, lingering fear crawl up his back. "Wei Ling, we'll meet again someday." Xiao Chen's gaze turned to Wei Ling and said this in front of so many people. When Wei Ling heard Xiao Chen's words, his expression became complicated. He then slowly said, "We don't owe each other anything." How could Jing Yu and Xiao Chun not understand the meaning of Wei Ling's words? Jing Yu saved Wei Ling. Now that Wei Ling was grateful and had left the Cebu Imperial Palace, what awaited him was a life and death enemy. "Let's go." Jing Yu and Xiao Chun turned around and walked out. Everyone present was extremely shocked by the scene in front of them. They all looked at Jing Yu and Xiao Chun with scrutinizing gazes. "Morong Wan, this is the end of my patience with you." Wei Ling slowly turned his head and looked at Morong Wan's face. At that moment, a feeling of disgust rose in his heart. "Your Highness." Morong Wan's eyes were full of astonishment. This consort actually hopes that that woman truly cherishes the position of Crown Prince's consort. You shouldn't have gone to provoke her at all. Wei Ling stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at Morong Wan and said, "From today onwards, you will move to the northern suburbs. Without my order, you are not allowed to leave." No, Your Highness. I know I was wrong." "Don't." When Morong Wan heard Wei Ling's words, her face suddenly filled with astonishment. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun had no interest in Morong Wan's fate. They had already walked out of the banquet, but they didn't expect to see the army surrounding them. What's going on? What's going on? Chapter 1287. Countless troops surrounded the banquet hall. Jing Yu, Xiao Chun, and the others retreated little by little, and once again retreated into the palace. The encirclement of the troops shocked everyone present. A hearty laugh sounded. Under everyone's gaze, a figure strode into the palace. His robes caused Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's expressions to change. So it's first brother. Wei Ling slowly turned around and looked around. He frowned slightly and said, "First brother actually dares to bring an army into the palace. Do you have father's orders?" This subject knew that Your Highness the Crown Prince would ask such a question. This is Imperial Father's decree. The person who had come was Wei Ling's elder brother, the eldest prince of Shiwu Kingdom. Wei, and by father's orders, I've come to capture the girl with different pupils. Wei Yin's face was filled with cruelty. His words caused Wei Ling's expression to change greatly. Everyone's face was filled with shock. Cries of surprise sounded from the crowd. First brother, why would the girl with different pupils be here? If you want to find her, you should go to the Roman forest. Wei Ling chuckled and said calmly. Huh? Your Highness, don't worry. We've already gone to the Roman forest, but we're still going to look here. Wei Yin said with a laugh. What do you mean by that? Wei Ling's expression changed as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Ah? Your Highness, you still don't know? Wei Yin looked at Wei Ling indifferently and said, half a month ago, Father had already issued an order. Cebu's forces are all heading to the Roman forest. They've already formed an alliance with Tokyo and Nanli. What? Wei Ling's expression suddenly changed after hearing Wei Yin's words. His pitch-black eyes were filled with haze. Xiao Chun and Jing Yu's expressions also became extremely ugly at this moment. Cebu actually sent troops to the Roman forest? What about the current situation in Jinling? Imperial Father said that since the Crown Prince doesn't care about the safety of the Cebu because of some selfish reasons, then this power should be handed over to Brother Chen. Wei Yin smiled proudly as he looked at Wei Ling. His eyes seemed to be saying that this was a business that was delivered to his doorstep. As for the girl with different pupils, Wei Yin looked at Wei Ling's face. An indescribable pleasure rose in his heart. The corner of his mouth curled into a faint smile as he said, if it weren't for your Highness the Crown Prince's close information, Brother Chen wouldn't have been able to find her through these clues. Ha! When I return and report to Imperial Father, I must remember your Highness' merit. As Wei Yin's words fell, Wei Ling at the side finally understood everything. It turned out that Wei Yin had planned this from the very beginning. He originally thought that Wei Ling had already been suppressed by Wei Yin, but he didn't expect that Wei Yin would pretend to be like this on the surface. In fact, Wei Yin was doing something else behind his back. Originally, Wei Yin needed to do it himself, but he was opportunistic and directly obtained all the information from Wei Ling, 9th Emperor's 9th Imperial concubine. This king is very happy to meet you for the first time, Wei Yin said as his eyes slowly turned towards Jing Yu and Xiao Chun. Chapter 1288. You two still don't know, right? Wei Yin looked at Xiao Chun, who was still wearing the mask and veil, and said with a smile on his face, the Roman forest is now a battlefield. Tokyo, Nanli, and the Cebu have reinforcements. How long do you think that small Jinling city can last? Even if it's a small northern pastoral city, can it withstand the attack of 3 countries? Wei Yin's eyes were full of joy. He smiled at Jing Yu and Xiao Chun and said, but what surprised me is that you two actually walked right into my Cebu's imperial palace. Haha, it's really effortless. Wei Yin's eyes were full of joy. He looked at Jing Yu and Xiao Chun as if he was looking at lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun were completely flustered by Wei Yin's words. Their eyes were full of shock. They didn't expect the Tokyo and Nanli to act so quickly. They also didn't expect Wei Yin to appear. Wei Ling didn't send out any troops because he saved his life. However, he forgot that Wei Ling wasn't the emperor of the Cebu. He didn't have full control over the Cebu. He also forgot that Wei Yin was an accident. Damn it. Jing Yu's face turned green and white. Her lips were tightly pursed. Wei Yin, do you still have me, the Crown Prince, in your eyes? Wei Ling also didn't expect such an accident. His eyes were full of anger as he shouted angrily. Your Highness, do you still have the Cebu in your eyes? Wei Yin didn't care at all and replied calmly. Wei Ling's words suddenly stopped in his throat. His eyes were full of anxiety. Man, take these people down. Wei Yin didn't waste any more words and immediately raised his hand to give the order. A mere Cebu country wants to trap us? Jing Yu's voice was full of disdain. She looked at the soldiers who were swarming over and moved to meet them head-on. The originally lively banquet hall was instantly filled with screams because of this fight. Those guests and young masters retreated to the corners. Xiang Yuji, Xiang Wanluo, and the rest were stunned by the scene before them. Their eyes were all fixed on Jing Yu, Xiao Chun, and the rest. What kind of storm can a blind girl with different pupils cause? When Wei Yan saw the figures of Xiao Chun and Jingyu fighting, he was slightly astonished. However, he suppressed the astonishment in his heart and spoke disdainfully. Catch them! Seeing Xiao Chun and Jingyu's ferocity, Wei Yan's eyes flashed with anxiety as he shouted. Scram! Jingyu lifted her leg and kicked away one of the people who had pounced on her. Wei Yan, who told you that I'm blind? Jingyu, who was dressed in a purple robe, stood in her original spot. She tilted her head slightly and looked at the people who had surrounded them. Her eyes were filled with disdain as she coldly looked at Wei Yan and asked, What? Wei Yan was taken aback when he heard this and asked, Huh? A dignified prince of the Cebu actually colluded with outsiders. Jingyu laughed loudly. If it wasn't for the poison sect and the Holy Family who gave you the news, how would you know that I'm blind? How would you know that I don't have different pupils? Chapter 1289. What makes you think that by trapping us in the Cebu Imperial Palace, we won't be able to leave? Jingyu's eyes were filled with disdain. You? Wei Yan's eyes flashed with a trace of panic when he heard Jingyu's words. Jingyu was right. If he hadn't received this news, Wei Yan wouldn't have acted so rashly. This was because the original intention of fighting with the other pupil was to subdue the other pupil. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't directly fall out with the girl with the other pupil. One must know that if he could obtain the other pupil's help, he would be able to easily dominate the world. Therefore, when Wei Yan received this news, he immediately decided to give this order. After all, the other pupil was useless now. As long as he captured it, he didn't care if he offended it or not. This was also the reason why he made this move today. Wei Ling stood to the side, his eyes filled with sadness and indifference. Cebu country. Today, when Wei Yan made such a move, fate had come to an end. Wei Ling could almost see how Cebu country would be destroyed in the future. Of all things, he shouldn't have fallen out with Jingyu without any preparations. Others might not know, but Wei Ling knew. The other pupil hadn't disappeared. So what if it is? Everyone in the world has the responsibility to kill a demon like you. Wei Yan's expression changed for a moment before returning to normal. His eyes were filled with determination as he looked at Jingyu and said, Today, I, Cebu, will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Huh. What a good enforced justice on behalf of the heavens. Jingyu laughed loudly. I'd like to see what kind of justice you'll be enforcing on behalf of the heavens. Of all things, you shouldn't have sent troops to the Roman forest. Jingyu's voice was so low that it was frightening. Under the gaze of Wei Yan and everyone else, Jingyu slowly raised her hand and took off the veil on her head. Wei Yan, do you really think that the other pupil doesn't exist anymore? After Jingyu's words, Jingyu casually tossed the veil in her hand to the side. The veil slid down in front of Jingyu's eyes as everyone stared at Jingyu. When the veil fell, Jingyu's beautiful face slowly revealed itself. Her eyelashes fluttered as a pair of enchanting golden-green eyes appeared before everyone's eyes. On that beautiful face, a pair of golden-green eyes that suddenly opened. She looked at everyone's clear eyes. Her eyes were like raging flames, but within the raging flames carry an intense coldness and coldness. You! Jingyu's eyes looked straight at Wei Yan's eyes were also looking straight at Jingyu. At this moment, Wei Yan clearly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. That intense coldness caused Wei Yan's brain to short-circuit for a moment. He didn't know what to say. Look carefully. What is the color of my eyes? That purple robe stood in the middle of the crowd. Her palm-sized face was so eye-catching. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Jingyu's eyes. Other pupil, Xiang Yuji and Xiang Wanluo, were completely dumbfounded when they saw Jingyu's eyes. At this moment, there was only this pair of eyes swaying in their minds. Chapter 1290. It turned out that their saviors were the 9th emperors and the 9th imperial concubine. Was this the legendary strange pupil? The strange pupil whose name shook the world and stirred up a storm. It was no wonder that Wei Ling had personally come to visit them. It was no wonder that they had gotten along so well. It was no wonder that they had accidentally met on the plains. It was no wonder that they had never shown their true faces to anyone. At this moment, the one whose expression changed the most was probably Moron Wan who was being supported by someone. She looked at Jingyu with eyes full of shock and sluggishness. She had never imagined that the person she had so casually stopped would actually have strange pupil. That pair of golden eyes was so soul-stirring. That pair of golden-green eyes looked at everyone with a cold and merciless gaze. Did you see it clearly? The corners of Jingyu's mouth curled into a faint smile. She slowly bent down and picked up a long sword that had been thrown on the ground. Her golden-green eyes narrowed slightly as she said coldly, "It's my first time seeing your Cebu. Why don't I leave you a little gift?" "Weian, are you ready?" The long sword in Jingyu's hand was pointed straight at Weian. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. At this moment, she looked at Weian as if she was looking at a dead man. Everyone held their breaths at this moment. Xiaochen slowly reached out and took off the mask on his face. His incomparably handsome face was revealed. He was dressed in black and had a strong, murderous aura. That pair of pitch-black eyes seemed to have a domineering aura that looked down on everything. "Jingyu," Wei Ling's voice came from behind her. "Wei Ling," Jingyu paused. She turned her eyes indifferently and said, "Do you remember what you just said? We don't owe each other anything." Jingyu remained unmoved as she spat out these words. Under everyone's gaze, Jingyu walked step by step towards Weian, seemingly not intending to say another word. Wei Ling felt his throat go dry when he heard Jingyu's words. "You're just a lackey, yet you still think you're invincible." Jingyu looked at Wei and with eyes full of coldness. She frowned and attacked Wei in an unscrupulous manner. "Stop her! Stop her!" The moment Wei saw Jingyu rushing over, he fiercely waved his arms and shouted, while his body retreated backwards. "Coward!" Jingyu scolded mercilessly when she saw Wei and evading her attack. "Kill!" On the other side, Xiaochen also didn't show any mercy and started a merciless massacre. When Jingyu revealed her different pupils, the arrogance of these people disappeared. Furthermore, Jingyu's preemptive strike made Wei an even more cowardly start to retreat. This action was no different from surrendering. After a few rounds, how could these soldiers still have the will to fight? Seeing these soldiers retreat step by step, Jingyu's eyes were filled with disdain. She retreated from the banquet hall to the open space outside. "They can't run away. Catch her!" Wei continued to shout. The disdain in Jingyu's eyes grew even stronger. She fought as she ran to the front of a notice board before stopping. What a joke! Jingyu stood on the platform and looked down at the people below. Her eyes were filled with coldness as she said indifferently, "Do you think that just because I revealed my different pupils, you have the chance to send a message to Jinling?" Chapter 1291. Do you think you have a chance to destroy Jinling before I return to Jinling? Jingyu coldly looked at Wei and Cebu. Jingyu raised her head and looked at the palace of Cebu. Her golden-green eyes flickered with an incomparably cold light in the dark night. The corner of her mouth hooked up into a mocking smile as she said, "When I, Jingyu, go to Cebu again, it will be the day when your Cebu changes its regime." The clear female voice exploded in everyone's ears. Just as Jingyu finished speaking, an incomparably clear and sharp cry came from the sky, causing everyone to raise their heads and look at the pitch-black sky. What is that? The people who were attracted by the cry all looked at the horizon. They seemed to be able to see a huge black shadow hovering in the sky. Go back and tell Gu Li and Yun Jing that if they want to send the news back to Jinling, then let's see if they can catch up to me. Jingyu's mouth hooked up into a faint smile. Her pair of ice-cold eyes looked at Wei, and as she slowly spat out these words, "That is..." After Jingyu finished speaking, a strong wind blew behind her, lifting up Jingyu's robe. Behind her, Xiaochen slightly raised his hand and hugged Jingyu's waist. A pair of pitch-black eyes shone with a cold light under the illumination of the lights. Fierce eagle. One of the sharp-eyed people recognized the huge, fierce eagle on the high platform. His eyes immediately revealed a look of horror. Let's go. Jingyu's mouth flashed with a trace of coldness. Almost as soon as she finished speaking, she jumped up. Under everyone's gaze, Jingyu and Xiao Chen both jumped onto the back of the fierce eagle. Under everyone's horrified gaze, 3 fierce eagles came one after another and took Xing Er, and Qinggu away. Mutant pupils. After seeing this scene, Wei Yan's face completely paled. His eyes were filled with horror. Looking at the fierce eagles leaving, he actually forgot to shoot for a moment. As a result, when he reacted and wanted to shoot again to stop Jingyu and Xiao Chun, he was already powerless. In the pitch-black sky, the fierce eagles flew without any obstruction. Tonight's scene became a spectacle in Cebu's imperial city. Everyone saw with their own eyes that the fierce eagles swooped down from an unknown place and stopped in the imperial palace to take away the legendary mutant pupil's imperial concubine and Tokyo, the famous Ninth Emperors. The banquet came to an end just like that. After that night, everyone's thoughts had changed. At that moment, they only had one thought in their heads. Jingyu's words echoed in their ears. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. They clearly came to a conclusion. From now on, the mutant pupils and the Cebu would fight to the death. In other words, because of Wei Yan's actions, the original peaceful relationship between the mutant pupils and the Cebu was completely destroyed. They knew without a doubt that the army sent to the Roman forest would be completely annihilated in the future battle. The Cebu could be considered to have completely announced the end of this banquet. My brother, are you satisfied with the current situation? Wei Ling looked at the pitch-black sky. He could no longer see Fierce Eagle's figure in the sky. When he turned his head, he saw Wei Yan standing there with a dazed expression on his face. He laughed mockingly as he spat out these words. Chapter 1292. It was said that when the news reached the ears of the Cebu Emperor was so angry that he vomited blood and fainted. After fainting, he never got up again. Of course, this was all in the future. After Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others got on the Humvee, they rushed towards the Roman forest without any hesitation. You heir, why is the Humvee here? Xiao Chun slowly looked away and turned his head to ask. It was a sudden thought. Jingyu's golden-green eyes slightly narrowed when she heard this. She said, originally, I just wanted to get back to the Roman forest as soon as possible, so I called the Humvee here on the way. I've done some calculations. Even if I expose my Humvee and abnormal pupils on the way back, I won't be able to reach Jinling. Jingyu's lips curled up as she said, so we can ride the Humvee back without any worries. Because the Humvee's speed is definitely faster than the carrier pigeons. By the time the news reaches us, we will already be in Jinling. What's there to worry about? Jingyu's indifferent words traveled over. Xiao Chun, Qinggu, and the other's eyes suddenly revealed a look of understanding. But I didn't think that something like this would happen. When Jingyu said this, her face suddenly became a bit ugly. Thinking about Jinglang and Shangguan Linglan who were far away in Jinling, Jingyu suddenly became a bit worried. Although the northern pastoral blocked it, with the addition of the Cebu, the combined attack of the 3 countries, the northern pastoral couldn't block it. Without Jingyu's leadership, the lion, tiger, and eagle cavalry were completely useless. Now Jingyu only had one thought, and that was that Shangguan Linglan and Hellion Theo had to hold on. Don't worry. Xiao Chen slowly reached out and tightly grasped Jingyu's hand. There was a faint light in his eyes as he said, I believe that they can hold on. I believe that we can make it in time. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen's tightly grasped hand with warmth in her eyes. She narrowed her eyes and silently rode the Humvee into the dark sky. What happened in the Cebu Imperial Palace that night instantly spread throughout the Cebu Imperial City. The people outside the Cebu Imperial City also received the news that Jingyu's other eye didn't disappear. She arrogantly rode on the Humvee last night in front of the entire Cebu Imperial Royal Clan's Imperial Clan that. The news reached the sacred race and the poisoned sect with unparalleled clarity. What did you say? Gu Li and Yun Jing, who had just entered the Shiwu Imperial City, had not even warmed up the chairs under there, but when they heard this news. Instantly, they stood up in disbelief, their faces full of shock. Fourth Elder, the news is correct. Cebu's news has spread throughout the entire Imperial City. The person standing below bowed his head, his eyes filled with anxiety. There's actually no news of the other. No news at all. Gu Li's expression was extremely ugly, alternating between green and white. He clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails were about to break. His eyes were filled with tyranny. Our guesses were right. Yun Jing also fell into a daze from the shock of the news. Then he abruptly reacted and said happily, "It's a good thing that we let Wei and be the Pathfinder first." Chapter 1293. If it wasn't for Wei Yin, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yun Jing pursed his lips and said, "You just said that the woman with different pupils left on a dauntless eagles?" Gu Li's expression quickly changed when he heard Yun Jing's words. He turned his head and stared dangerously at that person. Yes, it is said that it was because the Crown Prince of Cebu talked about the war in Jinling that the woman with different pupils was so angry that she killed her way out of the palace banquet hall. Under everyone's gaze, she summoned a dauntless eagle from the sky and escaped from Cebu. Now no one knows where she went. Bastard! Gu Li was thoroughly angered to death. He never thought that Wei Yin, this idiot, would actually mention the fact that Cebu supported the war in Jinling. If he didn't mention this matter, Gu Li would definitely be able to send the news back in time. But now that this news was spread, it was obvious that Jing Yu and the others would definitely rush to Jinling without stopping. How fast is the dauntless eagle? After a brief moment of anger, Gu Li steadied his emotions and turned to look at Yun Jing, asking, "It can travel thousands of miles in a day." Yun Jing heard Gu Li's question and thought for a moment before replying with a serious face. Damn it! Gu Li's expression turned ugly. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, "We can't wait any longer. Immediately send a letter to Jinling with the fastest carrier pigeon. Prepare the horses. We are setting off for the Roman forest." Yes. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's group had successfully caused a huge uproar in the Cebu Imperial City. But after causing such a huge wave, they arrogantly left, leaving behind the chaotic Cebu Imperial City. Jing Yu had already anticipated Gu Li and Yun Jing's actions. At this moment, Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's group were resting on an open space on a high mountain. The three dauntless eagles were resting. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen, who had not slept all night, were resting on the side. "Master, we have news from Jinling." Xing Er's figure walked in from outside the forest. He held a piece of paper in his hand and handed it to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen took it and replied. After quickly skimming through it, his face became extremely ugly. Wei Yin is right. Xiao Chen slowly raised his head to look at Jing Yu as he spoke. As he spoke, he passed the note in his hand to Jing Yu. The contents of the note made Jing Yu's expression turn ugly. Jinling City was attacked by Tokyo and Nanli with all their might. Now, the people of Jinling City could only defend Jinling City. They couldn't move at all. "We must hurry back." Jing Yu's expression darkened as she spoke with a cold glint in her eyes. "How fast is the Humvee?" Xiao Chen asked as he looked at the Humvee resting on the side. "We must reach Jinling within 5 days." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Jing Yu's expression changed. She then took a deep breath and said, "Let's go. Qinggu, how's your medicine?" "It'll be done soon." At this moment, Qinggu was developing the antidote for Xiao Chen. Jing Yu looked at Qing Ji's busy appearance and slightly pursed her lips. She walked towards the fierce eagle and reached out to pat its head. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions as she slowly said, "I'll have to trouble you guys for the next few days." Chirp! Fierce Eagle let out a low cry. Looking at Fierce Eagle's appearance, Jing Yu's mouth slightly curved into a faint smile, and she sighed, You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.